I learned that a life can fall apart quietly, not with sirens or screaming, but with a rent notice taped to your door and $14 left in your purse. That was how my worst day began. Rain slid down the third-floor windows of my studio apartment in thin silver lines, blurring the brick wall across the alley until it looked like the whole city had been erased. I stood barefoot on the cold kitchen tile, still wearing the black waitress uniform I had washed in the sink the night before, staring at the yellow paper taped above my deadbolt. Final notice. 7 days. No exceptions. My name, Emily Carter, looked smaller typed in all capital letters, like even the building had decided I was easy to remove. My phone buzzed on the counter before I could breathe. Then again. I already knew who it was. Ryan never texted once when he wanted to ruin my morning. He liked the sound of himself arriving in pieces. The first message said, "You owe me a conversation." The second said, "Don't ignore me." The third came while I was folding the notice into my purse with hands that would not stop shaking. "You still belong to me." I turned the phone face down like that could make the words disappear. It did not. Nothing did. Not the rent notice. Not the electric bill blinking red in my email. Not the voicemail from my little sister's clinic in Milwaukee reminding me that her payment was due by Friday. I sat on the edge of the bed and pressed my palms against my eyes until sparks bloomed behind them. 26 years old, 2 jobs, 1 used Honda with a bad starter, and I was still 1 bad week away from losing everything. The worst part was not the money. I understood money. Money was numbers, hours, tips, late fees, bus fare, coffee skips so groceries could happen. The worst part was how tired I was of pretending I was fine. By noon, my manager at Bellamy's called to say if I was late again, he would replace me by dinner. By 3, my car refused to start until the 4th try. By 5, Chicago had turned the color of wet concrete, and I drove through sheets of rain toward the restaurant with my uniform collar pulled high and my sleeves tugged low. The faint mark near my wrist was almost gone, yellow at the edges now, easy to hide if no one looked closely. People rarely did. That was the trick to surviving in public. Smile before they ask. Move before they notice. Say I'm okay before anyone has the chance to decide you are not. Bellamy's glowed at the corner of Rush Street like a place that had never worried about rent. Warm gold lights spilled across the sidewalk. Inside, crystal glasses chimed, expensive coats brushed against velvet chairs, and people laughed over wine that cost more than my weekly groceries. I tied my apron, checked my reflection in the stainless steel service station, and practiced the smile that paid my bills. It almost worked. For 3 hours I carried trays, refilled water, apologized for things that were not my fault, and pretended my phone was not buzzing in my locker. Then table 7 arrived. 4 men in dark suits walked in first, and the room changed before I understood why. Conversations lowered. The hostess straightened. My manager turned pale under the soft chandelier light. Then he came in behind them. Tall. Still. Black coat damp from the rain. Gray eyes moving once across the room as if he owned every exit, every shadow, every secret. I did not know his name yet. I only knew that when I stepped toward the VIP section with a tray of red wine, my hand slipped, glass shattered across the marble, and every face turned toward the mess at my feet. Every face except his. He was looking at my wrist. For one strange second, the restaurant did not make a sound. Not the silverware. Not the piano near the bar. Not the rich people pretending they had not watched a waitress humiliate herself in the middle of dinner service. Just rain against the windows and my own breath catching in my throat. Red wine spread across the white marble like a dark flower, crawling toward the polished shoes of the man at table 7. I dropped to my knees before my manager could hiss my name. "I am so sorry," I said, reaching for the broken stems with a white napkin wrapped around my fingers. "I will clean this up right away." My voice sounded calm. That was another skill I had learned the hard way. Let your hands shake if they must. Never let your voice shake where people can hear it. "Emily." My manager, Preston, came up behind me with that tight smile he used when important guests were watching. "Go get a broom. Now." I nodded too fast, and the sleeve on my right arm slid back as I reached for the largest piece of glass. Cool air touched the tender skin near my wrist. I felt it before I saw it. Exposure. Panic. The old yellow mark was not bright anymore, but under the chandelier it looked worse than it had in my apartment mirror. Like proof. like a secret deciding to speak. I yanked my sleeve down, but it was already too late. The man at table 7 had seen it. His eyes did not widen. His face did not change the way other people's faces changed when they noticed something ugly, and did not know whether to be curious or kind. He simply looked from my wrist to my face with a stillness that made the room feel smaller. "Leave it," he said. His voice was low, smooth, and impossible to ignore. Preston froze. "Mr. Hayes, please accept our apology. She is normally very careful." Hayes. The name moved through the staff like a cold draft. Vincent Hayes. I had heard it once before from one of the bartenders, whispered near the kitchen doors after midnight. A man who owned nightclubs without signing his name. A man police officers greeted carefully. A man people called dangerous only when they were sure no one else could hear. He did not look at Preston. He kept looking at me. "She is bleeding." I looked down. A tiny line of red had opened along my palm where the glass had kissed me. Nothing serious. Barely anything. But he noticed. Of course he noticed. Men like him probably survived by noticing everything. "It is fine," I said quickly. "I have bandages in the back." I started to stand, but my shoe slipped on the wet marble. Before I could fall, his hand closed gently around my elbow. Not hard. Not sudden. Just enough to steady me. I went completely still. My body remembered fear before my mind gave it permission. Vincent felt it. I knew he did because his grip loosened at once, though he did not let me hit the floor. "Easy," he said. "I am not going to hurt you." That should have made me relax. It did not. Safe words were easy. Safe hands were rare. I pulled away the moment I had my balance. "Thank you," I whispered, because politeness was another kind of armor. One of his men stepped forward, but Vincent lifted 2 fingers and the man stopped as if an invisible wall had come down. The power in that small gesture stole the air from my lungs. No shouting. No threat. Just obedience. Vincent reached for the clean linen napkin beside his untouched water glass and held it out to me. I hesitated. "Take it, Emily." My name in his mouth made my stomach drop. "How do you know my name?" His gaze flicked to the silver name tag pinned crookedly above my apron. I felt foolish for half a second. Then I remembered men like him never answered only one question at a time. I took the napkin and pressed it to my palm. I really need to get back to work. With one hand shaking and one hand cut? I have worked with worse. The words escaped before I could stop them. His expression changed then. Not softer. Deeper. Like something behind his eyes had opened and found a door I had forgotten to lock. He leaned forward just enough that only I could hear him over the renewed clink of silverware and forced conversation. "Who taught you to hide pain that well?" My heart hit once hard. I looked away first. Across the room, Preston watched with fear dressed up as hospitality. At the hostess stand, 2 servers pretended to study menus. Everyone knew this moment mattered, but no one knew why. I swallowed. "No one," I said. Vincent's eyes stayed on mine. "That is not true." I should have been offended. I should have walked away. Instead, I stood there with a linen napkin against my palm, rain tapping the glass, and the most dangerous man in the restaurant seeing me more clearly than anyone had in years. I told him I had learned it from working dinner service in shoes that cost $12 and rent that never waited for mercy. It was a clean lie. Practical. Almost believable. Vincent Hayes did not smile. He did not call me out in front of his men or my manager or the room full of people pretending not to listen. He only watched me with those gray eyes, steady and quiet, like he could hear all the things I had buried underneath the words. That made me angrier than it should have. Pity I could survive. Curiosity I could dodge. But being understood by a stranger felt like having a locked drawer opened without permission. "I need to get a bandage," I said. "Then get one," he answered. "And sit down for 5 minutes." Preston made a small choking sound behind me. "She is on shift, Mr. Hayes." Vincent finally looked at him, and the temperature around table 7 seemed to drop. "Then consider those 5 minutes paid for." He reached inside his coat, removed a folded stack of bills, and placed it on the table without counting. Preston stopped breathing like a man who had just been handed a problem too expensive to refuse. I should have been grateful. Instead, he climbed up my neck. I do not need anyone paying for my time. Vincent looked back at me. I did not say you did. There it was again. That calm. That control. He could have bought the restaurant and still sounded like he was asking for nothing. I hated that part of me wanted to believe him. I went to the back room with the napkin pressed to my palm, passing the kitchen line, the dish station, the metal shelves stacked with clean plates. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead. My locker sat half open, my phone glowing inside it like a warning. 11 missed messages. 4 missed calls. Ryan. I turned the screen down before reading any of them, because fear had a way of becoming real the moment I gave it my eyes. I washed my hand, wrapped the tiny cut, and stared at myself in the cracked mirror above the employee sink. Brown hair coming loose from my ponytail. Pale skin. Mascara smudged under blue-gray eyes that looked older than 26. You are fine, I whispered. My reflection did not believe me. When I returned to the floor, table 7 had been reset. The broken glass was gone. The wine stain was gone. The guests had gone back to eating, laughing, spending, breathing as if my small disaster had never happened. Vincent was still there. His meal remained untouched. A black business card rested beside his water glass. Thick paper, silver lettering, no title, only his name and a phone number. As I reached to refill the glasses, he slid it toward me with 2 fingers. Keep this. I did not touch it. I am not looking for trouble. Trouble rarely asks permission. I said I am fine. His eyes dropped for half a second to the sleeve I had pulled over my wrist again. Not accusing. Not cruel. Just aware. Fine is a word people use when the truth is too expensive. My chest tightened. You do not know anything about me. I know you looked at your phone like it had teeth. I froze. I know you flinched when I steadied you, even though I barely touched your arm. I know your manager is more afraid of losing a customer than losing a waitress. And I know whoever made you this careful does not deserve your silence. My throat burned. For one dangerous moment, I wanted to tell him everything. The apartment. The messages. The way Ryan could turn a normal afternoon into a locked room without ever raising his voice. But confession felt like stepping off a roof and hoping the dark would catch me. So I picked up the card only because leaving it there felt worse. This does not mean anything, I said. No, Vincent answered. It means you have a number. I tucked it into my apron pocket, angry at him, angrier at myself, and finished the rest of my shift with his presence sitting at the edge of every breath. At 11:43, I clocked out, pulled on my thin raincoat, and stepped through the back door into the alley. The rain had softened to a cold mist. The dumpsters smelled like old lemons and wet cardboard. I had taken 3 steps toward the employee lot, when a shape moved beneath the broken security light. Ryan Blake leaned against my Honda with both hands in his pockets, smiling like the night belonged to him. There you are, Emily, he said. I was starting to think you forgot who you answered to. My body knew Ryan before my mind accepted that he was really there. It was the way my shoulders tightened, the way my hand closed around the strap of my purse, the way the cold mist on my face suddenly felt like ice. He pushed away from my Honda with that easy, familiar confidence that used to fool me. Navy jacket, damp blonde hair, clean sneakers splashed with alley water. To anyone else, he looked like a man waiting for his girlfriend after work. To me, he looked like every locked door I had ever stood behind. You should not be here, I said. My voice came out thinner than I wanted. Ryan smiled wider. That is not a very warm greeting. I told you not to contact me. And I told you we needed to talk. He glanced past me toward the back door of Bellamy's, then back at my face. Busy night? Fancy people? Good tips. I took one slow step sideways, trying to angle myself toward the sidewalk. He noticed. Of course he noticed. Ryan was never as careless as he wanted people to think. Do not walk away from me, Emily. The words were quiet. That made them worse. Loud anger could be heard by witnesses. Quiet anger belonged to alleys and closed apartments and places where nobody wanted to get involved. My fingers slid into my apron pocket and touched the edge of Vincent Hayes's business card. Thick paper. Sharp corner. A number I had sworn I would never use. I am tired, I said. Please move away from my car. Ryan laughed under his breath. Your car? That little piece of junk still starts because I fixed it twice. You changed a battery once. Same thing. He stepped closer. I stepped back. Rainwater dripped from the fire escape above us, ticking against the lid of the dumpster like a nervous clock. I need money, he said, dropping the smile. There it was. The real reason. Not love. Not closure. Not one of his speeches about how I had ruined everything by leaving. Just money. Always money dressed up as hurt. I do not have any. You work at a place where people spend $300 on dinner. That does not mean I have $300. Then give me your tips. I shook my head. No. The word surprised both of us. Small but solid. Ryan stared at me as if a chair had spoken. What did you say? My pulse hammered so hard I could feel it in my cut palm. No. The alley seemed to hold its breath. Somewhere beyond the brick walls, a car passed on Rush Street, tires hissing over wet pavement. Ryan's face changed, not dramatically, not enough for anyone else to call it dangerous. Just enough for me to remember every reason I had left. He reached toward my purse strap. I pulled it back against my ribs. Stop, I said. You are making a scene. There is no one here. The back door opened. Yellow kitchen light spilled across the wet alley. Ryan turned first, annoyed, like someone had interrupted a conversation he owned. I turned slower because some part of me already knew. Vincent Hayes stood in the doorway without an umbrella, his black coat darkened by rain, one hand resting at his side, the other holding the door open behind him. He did not look surprised. He looked like the storm had finally arrived exactly where he expected it to. Behind him, two men waited in the light, silent and still. Ryan's hand dropped away from my purse. Who is this? He asked. Vincent stepped into the alley. The door swung shut behind him, cutting off the kitchen noise until there was only rain, breath, and the soft scrape of his polished shoes against wet concrete. That depends, Vincent said. His voice was calm enough to scare me. Are you the reason she hides her wrist? Ryan blinked, then gave a short laugh that did not reach his eyes. This is private. Vincent's gaze moved to me for half a second. Not demanding. Asking. I hated that the choice felt unfamiliar. I hated that I almost did not know what to do with it. Then I whispered, I want to leave. Vincent looked back at Ryan, and every inch of the alley seemed to go still. Then move away from her car. Ryan lifted his chin. You do not know who you are talking to. I know exactly who I am talking to, Ryan Blake. The sound of his full name in Vincent's mouth drained the color from Ryan's face. Mine too. Vincent took one more step forward, stopping far enough away not to touch him, close enough that Ryan understood distance was not protection. Take your hand off her life before I remove the choice. Ryan stared at Vincent like he was trying to decide whether pride was worth whatever waited behind those gray eyes. For once Ryan chose carefully. His jaw moved but no words came out. The rain gathered at the ends of his blonde hair and slid down the side of his face, making him look younger than he was, smaller than he had ever seemed in my memory. Vincent did not move. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. The two men behind him stepped forward just enough for Ryan to understand that the alley no longer belonged to him. This is not over, Ryan said, but the sentence came out weak, almost borrowed from a version of himself he could no longer reach. Vincent tilted his head slightly. It is over for tonight. One of Vincent's men opened a black umbrella. The other gestured toward the street with a politeness so cold it made my stomach twist. Nobody touched Ryan. Nobody had to. He looked at me once, and I expected the old fear to rise like water in my throat. It did, but only halfway. Then Vincent shifted one step, placing himself between us without making it a show, and Ryan looked away first. I heard his footsteps fade toward Rush Street. Then a car door opened. Closed. An engine started. The sound disappeared into the wet city, swallowed by traffic and rain and the distant music leaking from Bellamy's front entrance. I stood beside my Honda with my purse clutched against my chest, waiting for my body to realize it was allowed to breathe. Took longer than it should have. Vincent turned toward me but stayed several feet away. The distance mattered. I noticed it with the same sharpness I noticed exits, raised voices and locked doors. Are you hurt? He asked. No. The answer came fast. Too fast. His eyes moved over my face, my shoulders, my hands, but he did not challenge the lie. Can you drive? I looked at my Honda. The old car sat under the broken security light, rain dripping from the cracked rear bumper. My keys were in my fist, the metal teeth pressing half-moons into my palm. I could drive. Probably. Maybe. I imagined sitting alone at a red light, checking every mirror, wondering whether Ryan had circled back. My knees weakened before I could answer. Vincent saw that too. "My driver can take you home," he said. "I am not getting into a car with strangers." Good. That word surprised me. He said it like my refusal pleased him. "Then I will give you the license plate, the driver's full name, and you can text both to anyone you trust before the door closes. Or I can call you a cab and follow behind until you are inside your building. Your choice. Your choice." 2 words should not have felt like kindness. They did. I hated that they did. I looked at him through the silver rain and tried to find the trap. Men with power always had one. A price hidden under the rescue. A debt wrapped inside the favor. "Why are you doing this?" I asked. Vincent's face changed, not enough for most people to see, but enough for me. Something old passed through his eyes and vanished. "Because I know what it looks like when someone learns to survive by becoming invisible." The words landed quietly. Too quietly. I looked away before they could get too close. In the end, I let his driver take me home. I sent the license plate to my sister. I sat in the back seat with my phone in my hand and Vincent in the car behind us, his headlights steady through the rain. He did not come upstairs. He did not ask to. He waited at the curb until I reached my 3rd-floor window and turned the kitchen light on. Only then did his black SUV pull away. I slept for 4 hours with my shoes still on and woke to pale morning pressing against the blinds. For one blessed second I forgot everything. Then my phone buzzed. Not Ryan. Not my manager. An email from the property office. My overdue rent balance had been paid in full. I stared at the screen until the words blurred, and the quiet in my apartment no longer felt empty. It felt like a warning. I read the email 6 times before I moved. Paid in full. Current balance $0. The words should have felt like air after drowning, but all I felt was the floor shifting under my feet. I had spent years measuring survival in small amounts. $12 for gas. $87 for groceries. $32 in tips hidden behind the coffee filters because Ryan knew every obvious place to look. Money was never just money. Money was leverage. Money was a hand on the back of your neck, guiding you toward gratitude until gratitude became obedience. I called the property office first, hoping it was a mistake. Mrs. Langley answered in her usual tired voice and confirmed it with the casual cruelty of someone discussing weather. "Your balance was handled this morning, Miss Carter. 3 months ahead, actually. You are all set." 3 months. My hand tightened around the phone. By who? Papers rustled on her end. It came through a private account. No name listed that I can give you. Of course. I thanked her because manners had been stitched into me deeper than pride, then hung up and stood in the middle of my kitchen while the refrigerator hummed and rainwater tapped against the fire escape. I knew exactly who had done it. By 10 in the morning, I was on a bus heading north with Vincent Hayes's business card folded in my fist. The address was not printed on it, but the internet knew what people whispered. Hayes Holdings occupied the top floors of a black glass building near the river, the kind of place with security guards who looked at your shoes before your face. I wore my cleanest jeans, a gray sweater, and the same raincoat from the night before. My hair was still damp from the shower. My palms stung under the bandage. I walked through the revolving doors anyway. The lobby smelled like marble polish, coffee, and money. A woman at the front desk looked up with professional warmth that cooled the moment she saw me. "Can I help you?" "I need to see Vincent Hayes." Her smile tightened. "Do you have an appointment?" "No." "Then I am afraid Mr. Hayes is unavailable." I placed the black card on the counter. Her eyes dropped to it. Something changed. Not much. Just enough. She picked up the phone without another question. 10 minutes later, an elevator carried me to the 42nd floor with a man in a dark suit standing beside me, silent as a locked door. The office above the city was too quiet. No ringing phones. No rushing assistants. Just soft carpet, steel gray walls, and windows looking down at Chicago like the whole place could be moved with one command. Vincent stood behind a wide desk, jacket off, white shirt sleeves buttoned at the wrist reading a file. He looked up before I spoke. Emily. I hated the way my name sounded safe in his voice. I stepped forward and put a folded piece of paper on his desk. A payment plan I had written on the bus, ridiculous and impossible, but mine. I will pay you back. He glanced at the paper, then at me. No. Heat rose in my face. You cannot just pay my rent. I already did. That is not the point. My voice sharpened. The guard near the door shifted. Vincent lifted one hand, and the man went still. Again that quiet obedience. Again that world where his smallest movement changed other people's choices. I swallowed hard and kept going. I am not a charity case. I am not a debt. I am not something you found broken and decided to keep. For the first time, Vincent's calm cracked. Not anger. Something closer to pain, quickly buried. Is that what you think I am doing? I do not know what you are doing. That is the problem. He came around the desk slowly, stopping far enough away that I did not have to step back. I paid it because last night you had to choose between going home afraid and being homeless soon. Fear was making your decisions for you. I removed one of its weapons. My throat tightened, but I refused to soften. You should have asked. His silence answered before his mouth did. He knew I was right. That surprised me more than any apology would have. Yes, he said at last. I should have asked. The room seemed to exhale. Outside the window, the river moved dark and slow between the buildings. I looked down at the payment plan, suddenly embarrassed by the crooked numbers, the desperate math. Vincent looked at it too, but there was no mockery in his face. I did not pay your rent to own you, Emily. His voice dropped low and steady. I paid it so fear would stop making your decisions. But if keeping it makes you feel trapped, I will have the account reversed today. I stared at him. No man had ever handed me power and stepped back from it that cleanly. It made me more afraid, not less, because now I could not hate him easily. Before I could answer, his office phone lit up. Vincent looked at the screen. His expression changed. The air turned colder. He answered with one word. Listen. Then his eyes found mine, and every instinct in my body woke up. Ryan Blake is not your only problem, he said quietly. The words did not make sense at first. They entered the room cold and quiet, but my mind refused to give them shape. Ryan was familiar fear. Ryan had a face, a voice, a pattern I understood too well. Anything beyond him felt impossible. Like being told the shadow under my bed had been hiding a larger shadow behind it. Vincent ended the call and placed the phone down with careful control. What does that mean? I asked. My voice sounded far away. It means Ryan owes money to men who do not forgive embarrassment. I almost laughed, because the alternative was crying in front of a man whose office sat above the city like a throne room. Ryan owes everyone money. Credit cards. Friends. Me. Not like this. Vincent walked to the window, looked down at the river, then back at me. He used your name. My stomach turned. Used my name how? As assurance. As a way to buy time. The room tilted slightly. I reached for the back of the chair beside me, pretending I only needed something to lean on because my shoes were wet. I never signed anything. They do not care. He said it gently, which somehow made it worse. Ryan told them you were valuable to him. That if he failed to pay, they could pressure him through you. My skin went cold under my sweater. I thought of the messages, the alley, his hand reaching for my purse, the way he had asked for tips with panic hidden under anger. It had not been only about controlling me. It had been about someone controlling him. Why would he do that? I whispered. Vincent's expression did not soften, but something in his eyes did. Because weak men often spend what is not theirs, then offer what they never had the right to give. I looked at the payment plan on his desk, my crooked handwriting suddenly childish beneath the weight of something much larger. So what now? Now you do not go anywhere alone for a few days. My head snapped up. No. He held my gaze. Emily. No. I am not being moved around like property because Ryan dragged my name into his mess. I am not moving you like property. That is exactly what it sounds like. The guard near the door stared at the wall as if trained not to hear anything human. Vincent lowered his voice. Then tell me what sounds acceptable. That stopped me. Anger had been easier when he acted like every other man who thought protection meant control. But he stood there waiting for my terms, and I did not know how to speak a language no one had taught me. I need to work tonight, I said. I need my paycheck. Then you work. I take the bus home. No. His answer came too fast. My eyes narrowed. He breathed once slower. Not alone. I can have someone drive behind the bus. You will not see them unless something happens. That is creepy. It is also discreet. I hated that it was reasonable. I hated that I was scared enough to consider it. By sunset, I was back at Bellamy's with my apron tied too tight and Vincent's card in my pocket like a stone. The restaurant looked the same, gold light, white tablecloths, soft music, but I was not the same inside it. Every reflection in the window became a question. Every man who lingered near the bar became a threat my mind invented before truth could correct it. Preston acted like nothing had happened, except he did not assign me to the VIP section and he stopped yelling when he saw my face. At 9:30 my sister called. I let it go to voicemail because I could not make my voice normal. At 10:15, a black sedan idled across the street for 13 minutes, then pulled away. At 11 I clocked out through the front because the back alley felt too narrow to breathe in. The bus stop was 2 blocks away under a flickering shelter light. Chicago wind cut through my raincoat, sharp and damp from the lake. I told myself I was being dramatic. Then the same dark sedan turned the corner again, slow this time. Too slow. My hand was already in my pocket before I decided to move. I took out Vincent's card. My thumb hovered for 1 second, pride fighting panic and losing. He answered on the first ring. Where are you? 2 blocks south of Bellamy's. Under the bus shelter on Dearborn, I said, and I hated how small my voice sounded inside the rain. There is a black sedan circling the block. Vincent did not ask if I was sure. He did not tell me to calm down. He only said, walk into the pharmacy on your left. Do not run. Stay where people can see you. I looked through the wet glass of the shelter. The pharmacy sign glowed green across the street, bright and ordinary. A place for cold medicine and greeting cards and people whose lives made sense. I see it. Go now, Emily. I crossed when the light changed, my shoes splashing through shallow puddles, my phone pressed so tightly to my ear that my fingers ached. The sedan rolled past once, slow enough for me to feel watched through the dark windows. I did not look directly at it. I had learned that fear could be polite when it needed to survive. Inside the pharmacy, warm air hit my face. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. A college kid compared protein bars near the front. An older woman argued with the cashier about a coupon. Normal life continued around me while mine narrowed to the sound of Vincent breathing on the other end of the line. I am inside, I whispered. Good. Go to the back aisle. Stand near the pharmacy counter. Are you coming? Yes. The answer came so quickly that something in my chest loosened before pride could stop it. 7 minutes later, the front doors opened, and every conversation in the store seemed to lower without anyone knowing why. Vincent entered wearing a dark overcoat, rain on his shoulders, his gray eyes finding me past shelves of shampoo and first aid kits. He was not alone, but his men stayed near the entrance. He came to me slowly, hands visible, face controlled. You did well. I almost laughed. I bought toothpaste to look casual. His eyes dropped to the box clutched in my hand. For the first time since I had met him, the corner of his mouth moved like he nearly smiled. Convincing. It was ridiculous. The danger. The rain. The Mafia man in a pharmacy aisle complimenting my emergency toothpaste. My breath shook and suddenly I was crying without sound, which felt worse than sobbing because I could not blame it on anything dramatic. Vincent did not reach for me. He stood there and let me have the dignity of falling apart without an audience. I am so tired, I whispered. I know. No, you do not. His gaze held mine. Then tell me. That was the moment I understood why he frightened me. Not because he was powerful. Not because men moved when he lifted a hand. Because he listened like my words mattered before I had earned the right to matter. I wiped my face with my sleeve and looked away. I do not want to go home tonight. His expression changed by one careful degree. I have a house outside the city. Staffed. Secure. You can have a locked room, your own phone, your own transportation, and you can leave whenever you choose. I searched his face for ownership, for victory, for the hidden price. I found none. What happens if I walk away tomorrow? I asked. Then I make sure the road is safe. The answer was so simple it hurt. I went with him because the alternative was standing under fluorescent lights until fear came back for me. The house was 40 minutes north, beyond the noise of Chicago, set behind iron gates and bare winter trees. It should have felt like a cage. Instead, it smelled like cedar, coffee, and rain drying on stone. A woman named Mrs. Bell gave me tea, clean towels, and a bedroom with a lock on the inside. Vincent stopped at the doorway, never crossing the threshold. You are safe here. Are people safe around you? I asked before I could lose the courage. He looked down the quiet hall, and for a second the man in the expensive coat looked older than 34. Not always. Honesty settled between us, heavy but clean. My father taught me power by removing choices, he said. I have spent my life trying not to become him. Some days I fail quietly. I held the warm mug between both hands. Then do not fail with me. His eyes returned to mine. I will not. Later, behind the locked door, I sat on the edge of a bed softer than anything I owned and listened to the rain move through the trees. For the first time in months, fear was still outside, but it was not holding the key. By morning, the rain had stopped, but the world outside Vincent's house still looked washed in gray. I woke before sunrise in a room that was not mine, under blankets too soft for a woman who was used to sleeping with one ear open. For a few seconds I forgot where I was. Then I saw the locked door, the untouched tea on the nightstand, the clean sweater Mrs. Bell had folded on the chair, and memory returned in pieces. The pharmacy, the sedan, Vincent in the doorway, promising not to fail with me. I should have stayed hidden for one more day. That was what a smarter woman would have done. But fear had already stolen too many shifts, too many mornings, too many versions of myself. At 10, I found Vincent in the kitchen, standing beside a window with a phone in his hand and a cup of black coffee going cold beside him. He looked at the uniform draped over my arm and understood before I spoke. You want to go back to work? I need to. His jaw tightened, but he did not say no. That mattered. Then we do it your way, he said. Not mine. I asked. Your way, he repeated. So I went back to Bellamy's that evening with one of his drivers parked down the block, my phone charged, and Vincent nowhere in sight because I had asked him not to turn my life into a spectacle. The restaurant smelled like lemon polish and roasted garlic. The chandeliers glowed. The wealthy laughed softly over white plates and red wine. Everything looked normal, which was how danger liked to dress itself. Preston gave me a long look, then assigned me to the front section without complaint. For the first hour, nothing happened. For the second, my hands stopped shaking. By 9, I almost believed the night would pass quietly. Then the man in the charcoal coat sat at table 12 and asked for me by name. He was not loud. He was not dramatic. He smiled at the menu like he had come for dinner, but when I approached, he placed Ryan's phone on the white tablecloth. My breath vanished. He says hello, the man said. I looked toward the bar, toward the hostess stand, toward Maria balancing a tray near the kitchen doors. If I panicked, everyone near me would panic too. If I froze, he would know he still had power. So I did the only thing I had not done for months. I chose myself before fear could choose for me. I smiled the waitress smile I had practiced for years and said, Would you like sparkling water or still? His eyes narrowed just slightly. While he answered, I moved my thumb over my phone in my apron pocket and pressed the emergency contact Vincent had programmed that morning. Then I reached for the water pitcher and knocked a fork from the table on purpose. It clattered against the marble. Maria looked up. I met her eyes and said, calm enough for the whole room to hear, Could you ask Preston to call security for table 12? The man stood. Not fast. Not violently. Just enough to make nearby conversations die. Before he could take one step, the front doors opened and Vincent Hayes walked in. No entourage this time. No display. Just him, rain-dark coat, gray eyes, and a silence that moved through the room ahead of him. He stopped beside me, but he did not stand in front of me. He stood beside me. That was the difference. Emily asked you to leave, he said. The man in the charcoal coat looked from Vincent to me, and something in his expression changed when he realized I was not hiding behind anyone. Bellamy's security arrived. 2 officers from the patrol car outside came in moments later. The man left without a scene, escorted into the cold Chicago night by people whose names would go into reports, not rumors. When it was over, my knees nearly gave out, but they did not. Vincent turned to me. "Are you all right?" I looked at the door, then at my own hands still steady around the water pitcher. "I think I am getting there." He nodded, and in his eyes I saw relief he did not try to own. Later, after statements and questions and Preston apologizing more than he had ever apologized to anyone without money, I stepped outside into air that smelled like rain and gasoline and the river. Vincent waited by the curb, not opening the car door, not telling me where to go. Just waiting. "What happens now?" I asked. He looked at me like the answer belonged to me first. "Now you decide." For the first time, that did not terrify me. I walked to him because I wanted to, not because the night had cornered me. He had entered my life like a storm, all shadow and danger and impossible power, but the miracle was not that he saved me. The miracle was that he taught me protection could have open hands. And when I finally stopped running, it was not because he held me still. It was because, beside him, I remembered how to stand.